Hello, dreamers. I wanted to share with you my most, I would say, significant manifestation that was several years ago. And the reason I want to share this one is because it was one of the ones that most people would look at and say that was a very urgent need. Dire circumstances, a lot of judgment, maybe from the outside looking in at my situation. And yet, I was able to manifest this solution with joy and fun and feeling good and not feeling stressed. So I feel like this is an important topic to share. And some of us may have things that we want to manifest that don't seem so time pressured. And others of us might have very time pressured things they're working on. So we'll see. But here's my little story, and then I will share with you what I think I've learned from it so far. But I am not someone who I would say is an enlightened being. I am not someone who has been permanently illuminated, and I never experience negative emotions anymore. That is not me, my friends. I get triggered with the best of them. I can swim in any pool of drama, but I like to feel good. And when I'm manifesting, that is the goal, is to keep redirecting, just like I would redirect a toddler from constantly trying to destroy things, right? You just redirect. This is what we do with our brains when we're manifesting, okay? So here's my story. Back in 2014, I was homeless. That's right. I was a single mom. I have 4 kids who are all adults now, but back in 2014, they were not adults. None of them were adults. And we lost our home. And I'm reading from my little notes because sometimes when I make a video, I get a little nervous. So here we are. My kids were about ages 12 to 17, and I did have a job. And at one point, I had 3 jobs. So I had, at least at this time, I had 1 job. And what was happening with 3 jobs before I was homeless, 1 job opened up to give me more hours, so I dropped the other 2 jobs. And the other 2 jobs were way less enjoyable for me. Like, they were just not fun. Let's put it super clear. And the 1 job was really nice. It just felt so good to be there. So that was the situation. And then in 9 months' time, previous to me actually losing the home, my van had one breakdown after another breakdown after another breakdown. And the van was already paid for, right? So I didn't have a van payment, not a monthly payment, right? I owned it outright. But each repair that came up, I kept telling myself I can make those repairs on a payment plan. And once it's done, I will no longer have the van payment again. And it wasn't just the van. It wasn't that it was old and that I should have just gotten a new van. It was crazy unforeseen stuff kept happening. Like this one day, I was driving on the freeway and somebody else's tire blew out and I couldn't safely avoid it. So I had to run over it and it ripped out my fuel line or something like that. I can't remember. I just think he said it ripped out the fuel something. So, I'm glad we didn't blow up or anything, but still, it was like a very expensive repair for me who was, single mama trying to make it work. So after 9 months, it was $6,500 of repairs, and I couldn't keep up with those payments and keep my house and the cost of actually having a house, like utilities and stuff, and feed my kids and get them to their 3 different schools. So, yeah, so I decided to let go of the house, basically. Oh gosh, we did not end up living under a bridge, which is really awesome. We were taken in by 4 different friends over 2.5 months that we were homeless. So I just want you to do a check-in. If you found yourself homeless, how would you feel? You and your child or your children, there's no spouse, there's no help. You know what I mean? You are now homeless. So luckily, I had amazing friends that had homes. So believe it or not, I wasn't just stress free during this time. I actually felt lighter and happier than I had felt in years and years and years and years while I was homeless. So during this time, I was reading a collection of books by Florence Scovel Shinn, which I did post in the group. One of the books is called The Game of Life and How to Play It. One of them, I believe, is called Your Word is Your Wand. And then there's other titles in there. And I read that book every single day as often as possible. I also read The Golden Key by Emmet Fox repeatedly. And my friend Heather Noel reads this book by Emmet Fox on her YouTube channel. I love her voice. It is so healing and soothing. I just love to listen to it over and over again. You can find the PDF for free online. It's just 6 pages or less, in that big format, but it's not long and it's really very direct and very clear. So at that time, many times while we were homeless for 2.5 months, my children told me how stressed out they were feeling about living with my friends and my friends' kids. And every time, of course, I had a knee-jerk reaction to take their stress into my brain and onto my shoulders. But every time this flash of an opportunity to take their stress into my body, I said no. Internally, I didn't say it out loud to them, but internally, there was like this stop in the name of love, right? Like, no, I'm not taking that on to myself. I did not ever negate their experience. I didn't tell them not to feel that way. I hugged them. I told them I'm sorry they're feeling stressed. I told them that this situation is temporary. And I told them, of course, how much I love them. And what was happening in my mind and in my heart was what's called positive prayer, right? Thinking ahead of time prayer. And so what I was saying to myself at the time was, thank you, Spirit, for delivering the perfect home for me and my family under grace in perfect ways. And that was the gist of my mantra, my prayer. And sometimes I would think to say it in different ways, like using the word unleash. And then I would have like this flash of a vision that lit me up with positive energy. And so, it might adjust, but with the wording, but it was always thank you for my home under grace in perfect ways, right? There is some trust involved with that. So with that prayer, I actually said it until I felt better in my mind, usually, rarely out loud unless I was alone in my car, right? So I repeated it over and over and over in my mind, depending on the location and privacy that I had. But I said it to myself until I felt better in my body, right? So that until I felt that shift and that connection to love, to peace, to feeling Spirit actually loving me and loving my family and looking out for us. And I could feel my shoulders lighten. I could feel my chest open. I could feel this vibrating love in my body. And then I would go about, my normal life. And I want you to keep in mind that during this time, of course, all my friends and my employer was like, so what are you going to do? Oh my gosh, Theresa, what are you going to do? And they were very stressed about it. And my answer is like, I don't know. I have no idea how this is going to work out. I had no idea how any of it was going to work out. I just kept living my life with that positive prayer in my mind as much as humanly possible. So sometimes I would start to have a flood of stressful thoughts, which creates a bunch of stressful emotions. And I'd have to put my hand up, like I said, and say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going there. We just don't have the time, the space, the energy for that. And then I'd find as many ways to say my positive prayer as I needed to until I felt good again. And I'd imagine all these flashes. Sometimes I would get flashes of the home, and I had no attachment to any specifics about the home. I felt relief. I felt taken care of. I felt loved and I felt guided. I felt so much peace and so much happiness. I had so much laughter with my friends and with our kids. And those months, shockingly, were the most lighthearted months I may have ever had to this date. I felt such deep appreciation and gratitude for spirit, for my friends, for my children, for my job. And then one day, while I was homeless, I needed to buy groceries. So my 13-year-old daughter went with me to the store that was close by where we were staying. Because keep in mind, I still had a job while I'm homeless, right? So I do have money and I have an income. It just is paying off the van. So, oh goodness. So anyway, we got everything we needed. We packed up the van from, the groceries, and then I backed it up. I shifted into drive to go forward, and then my van got hit by some little car, but it was hit so hard that it lifted up my van and then it, fell back down. So I already had PTSD. So my startle response, it is off the charts. You really might enjoy watching a scary movie with me if you like to get startled too. But anyway, I screamed. I was just, shocked and surprised. And between my sudden scream and the loud crunch of the vehicles, my little daughter was just shaking with fright, but she was not physically injured. So a young man had backed right into me, and the dent and the paint, they were scuffed up the side of my van. So I had 100% proof that it was 100% his fault. And other than some, mild shock and fright, nobody was physically injured at all. We exchanged our insurance information. We went on our way. And of course, I was annoyed and inconvenienced, but super glad that everyone was okay. And I was really glad it wasn't my fault. I was not going to get in trouble for this. And then I went back to my mantra, right? Thank you so much, Spirit, for delivering the perfect home for me and my family under grace in perfect ways. And I went back to being happy. Inconvenience, trigger, back to being happy. You get what I'm saying? So the van repair was about $1,000, and his insurance gave me a choice to repair the car or take the money. So of course I took the cash, yeah? And I used that money to get my family a home. And it was the perfect home for us at that time, which led actually to my next perfect job for me at that time, which helped me to eventually become the entrepreneur that I am today. So how perfect and amazing was that? My homelessness was perfect because I wouldn't have looked for that new home, and I wouldn't have found that new home, and I wouldn't have been right across the street from my next new job that led me to this entrepreneurial job here at home right now. So How awesome is that? Very. Okay, so some things I learned from being homeless. So of course I don't recommend it, but it isn't the end of the world. Let me put it that way. So number one, what I learned is circumstances do not dictate how I feel. My thoughts do. Circumstances do not dictate how humans feel. Their thoughts do. And we're talking about emotions. Number two, how to powerfully manage my thoughts for approximately 75 days straight until I got what I wanted. So from the time I became homeless until the time I moved in to the new home, it was about 75 days. Number three, how to pull myself out of an emotional downward spiral immediately and effectively 100% of the time. That's a pretty good gift. Am I right? Number four, how to feel good, how to feel positive, supportive, useful emotions. The whole time I was working towards my goal of having a home for my family, even though I had no idea whatsoever how it was going to work out or when it was going to work out. Number five, how to not take on other people's thoughts and feelings and put them into my brain and my body. Super important. Number six, how to accept the present circumstances and live in my present circumstances with a focused mind and a joyful heart, not resisting, not reacting, not avoiding. Number seven, how to set an intention without being attached to any specifics, right? So at that time, I wanted what I would call the perfect home for my family, right? Under grace in perfect ways. But I didn't have any attachments to where or when, even though in my prayers and my conversations with Spirit, I had desires, I had ideas like this would be nice, but anywhere is great. And this timing would be nice, before the kids go back to the new school year, but I'm not attached to it. Whatever. All I know is this is what I want, and I'm going to practice feeling good. So it's not that I had no ideas on what I wanted. It was just that I wasn't attached, like it has to be this way and it has to be exactly right. I knew Spirit could work out the details. So what else did I want to share here? Some people choose to visualize and they create in all their specifics. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just suggesting don't force it. So for me, I just had this idea of the perfect home for my family, but I actually didn't have a lot of visuals for that, and I was okay with that. And then during prayer or during meditation, I might get a flash of an idea, and to me that is receiving mode. That's like Spirit communicating to me like this is a good idea, but again, still not attaching to it, but receiving that gift of the image, that gift of the thought. And so, and that went same with the timing. And so some people call this scientific prayer and some people call it positive prayer. But here's where I really anchored into being able to use it is there is one thing for sure. If I only knew one thing about my life or about me, it would be that Spirit loves me unconditionally. Spirit accepts me as is unconditionally 100% of the time. No matter how grumpy I am, no matter how happy I am, no matter what good I might be doing in the world according to good standards, no matter what bad may have been done in the world according to bad standards. The love that Spirit had for me I knew 100%. And I still know that 100%. So I needed that anchor to anchor all of the other things, all of the other positive prayers that would come in. It's like if I'm starting on a downward spiral into the depths of despair, I could go back to, okay, okay, I know you love me. If that's all I know you love me. And in that moment, I begin to feel better. And because I'm choosing to feel better, choosing to acknowledge Spirit's love for me, new thoughts come in that support that feeling and support that belief. I know that you accept me. I know that you love my children and you are looking out for us, right? And these thoughts would build and they would build, and then it would be back into feeling higher and gooder. That's right. Higher and gooder and better and better and better all the time. So that was my foundation to manifest. Spirit to me is God, universe, angels, my ancestors, which includes my mom and all of my grandparents and beyond. And it also includes nature, spirit guides. We've got many plants, animals, insects, and they are all part of this. I've even had gems and stones show up in my dreams. And all of these are our relatives, and all of them are connected to all of us through love. And some people may call it the Holy Spirit, and others call it the quantum field, but it's really love is what it is. Love, wholeness, oneness. And so one of the other things I wanted to share, because like I said, I did have people asking, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? And they're like stressed out about it. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that. That's none of my business. Like, oh, okay. So the Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn, page 125, she says the student should never talk of a demonstration until it has gelled, until it has come to pass, until it has actually manifested. And I didn't share my affirmation with anyone at that time. I went to work, I took care of my kids, and I had fun with my friends. And I always had that prayer and my manifestation desire in the back of my mind. And that's what I was focused on in the back of my mind, under grace in perfect ways. And it was always a thank you so much energy. It was always a done energy, like it felt complete in my body, and an appreciation energy. So, of course, people knew I wanted a home. But how I was going to get it was beyond me. And I would just say, I don't know, but it's all going to work out. And I think that's one of the easiest things we could say to someone is, I'm just not sure yet, but I know for sure it's going to work out. Right? That's what I do know for sure. For sure it's going to work out. And I was right. And they could see in me, they could see in my sense of peace and my conversations around the topic that I wasn't stressed about it. And I think that really took them aback. And so they just kind of stopped talking about it, because what else could they say? They could see my countenance was not in worry or despair or stress around it. And so they just dropped it, which made it so much easier for me, right? Because what else am I gonna say? I'm just gonna keep saying the same thing. I don't know, but for sure it's gonna work out. There's nothing else to say. Talking too much about your affairs, scattering your forces, brings you up against a high wall. That's the Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn, page 188. She's referring to a symbolic wall, akin to the walls of Jericho from the Christian Bible, and that wall that stands between you and your heart's desire. This could be a wall of resentment, fear, jealousy, discouragement, or some other negative, low vibe emotion. And there is nothing wrong with having negative emotions. It just slows you down. That's all. But it doesn't make you a bad person, right? It doesn't make it mean anything bad about you because you have negative thoughts and feelings, right? It's just simply slows you down. That's all. But it won't slow you down if you're usually redirecting your thoughts and your feelings just like you would keeping a toddler out of the street, right? Time to turn around. Oh, don't put that fork over there in that light socket, right? You just got to constantly redirect. Like, that's not going to be good for you. So let's do this instead. That's what you do for a toddler. It's what you do for your beautiful brain. It's only useful to share your goal with someone who can amplify your coherent energy, someone who can hold you and your vision in a high frequency. So the term is don't cast your pearls before swine, and it is not to name call, but to just be cognizant of those who can really believe in you and believe in source, and not, sharing with the people that just can't hold that energy. So just as I didn't take on my kids' thoughts and feelings into my own brain and body, don't take anyone's thoughts and feelings into your own brain and body unless they believe in you and they're filling you up with belief and with love and peace, right? That's the kind of feelings you want to keep perpetuating with your thoughts. And if you choose to share with those people that can do the same. So I wrote this down, right? But I have experienced so many miracles in my life. And so some of them I asked for, and some of them I definitely did not ask for in this life, in this body. Before I came here, for sure I did. But I didn't remember that. So the reason I say this is two reasons. I believe that our desires, our prayers are answered before we even ask for them. And I believe that there is no such thing as time and space, and everything really is right now. And it's a concept that we have a super hard time understanding because we're in this body and in this brain. But I think we can get glimpses of the truth of that, and to just understand that what you have asked for already is. It is in a realm that you can't touch yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't already there. So your job now is just to keep feeling now the way you would feel when you have that thing in your hands or in your life. Does that make sense? So that's one thing. The other thing is, there have been times in my life where I have felt suicidal, where I have felt completely lost, total despair and hopelessness, angry. I've pretty much felt every single negative emotion I think a human can feel. And yet, those were some of the times I received my greatest miracles, where I didn't ask even for help and didn't want it. And yet, Spirit came anyway and helped me know how much I'm loved and pulled me out of it. And there's other times where I did my own work and I stayed really in alignment with my thoughts of believing in God, and believing that I'm loved, and believing that I'm cared for, and that what I want is valued and important too, and that it is already mine, and just thanking ahead of time. And then the thing came very quickly compared to what it could have been, right? So I just want to say that because I don't want anyone to be afraid of their thinking and afraid of their feelings if they have a moment that's down. It doesn't mean anything bad about you, and it doesn't mean that you will never be able to have what you want. It's just an awareness of that's what you're thinking right now, and now you can choose to process it in any way you need to. Or in the case of when I was homeless, I didn't have room for those thoughts. There was no time for that. It's almost like wallowing in fear and negativity is a luxury that I have time for right now. I'm not under any time pressure whatsoever. So if I want to spend the day or the week or the month just wallowing in negativity, I can certainly do that. And it will not bring what I want to me any faster. That's for sure. But when I was homeless, I had no room in my psyche or in my life for negative thinking. None. And that is why every time I even started to have a negative thought and feel stress in my body, I had to say, no, there's no time for that. I don't have the energy for that. We're not doing that. We're not going there. It is not necessary. What is necessary is connecting right now with Source and believing that I have already been answered and just be grateful right now. I hope that makes perfect sense to you all. And please, please know that whatever love I've found for myself in my experiences with spirit, I truly believe this same 100%ness is true for all of us, is true for every single human being and non-human being on this planet and in this universe. And I truly believe that we are all 100% lovable 100% of the time. We are 100% accepted by spirit 100% of the time. And we are also 100% worthy of receiving our desires 100% of the time. If we could see ourselves through the eyes of our angels, through the eyes of our elevated ancestors who now know, who now can see the big picture, if we could see ourselves through the eyes of the source of light, love, and peace that we come from, we would never have any need to feel anything negative. But we chose to come into a life experience that delivers contrast, and then we get to choose how we want to feel about it. The contrast ignites a desire, and then we go back to feeling good, back to remembering how loved we are. That's it. So love you, love your people and your animals and all the plants. Love all the plants. I'm an herbalist. Please love the plants. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy your manifesting process.